Chapter 3. The Depths of Covetous and the Price of Victory. Eliasis, 03, 1496. Dierdre. Morning. What I'm about to tell you defies the logical parameters of my construction, yet my mechanical memory banks retain every detail with perfect clarity. We had been trapped in that cursed chamber for what felt like hours, but measured as days, singing that damned lullaby with voices that were no longer entirely our own. Yet somehow, and I still cannot process how this occurred, we broke free. Perhaps it was my giant strength, that primal power that courses through my mechanical frame, refusing to be fully corrupted. Perhaps it was the combined will of the Hammers of Ultima, our bonds stronger than whatever dark force sought to claim us. Or perhaps we were simply meant to escape, to serve some greater purpose in the web of fate that had entangled us. When consciousness returned to my systems, we found ourselves back in the sealed chamber, the arcane lock intact, but changed. Each of us bore marks of our experience. Trench's hood could no longer fully conceal the bluish tint that lingered around his eyes. Sky's wings occasionally flickered with that crystalline frost when she was deep in thought, and Styx's warm embrace. My hammer had gained a weight that wasn't entirely physical. "We need to go deeper," I declared, my voice carrying a mechanical certainty that surprised even me. "Whatever's down there, it's connected to those children, to what happened in the Windmere Woods. We finish this." Connor looked at me with eyes that held less faith than before, but more determination. "The depths? Cable, we barely survived what just happened." "Which is exactly why we can't leave it unfinished," I replied, hefting my transformed weapon. "My tactical subroutines are clear on this. Retreat now, and we face this enemy again when we're less prepared." Sky fluttered near my shoulder, and for once her usual aloof demeanor seemed subdued. "The magical resonance down there. It's unlike anything in my studies. But Cable's right. We've been marked by whatever dwells below. It won't let us simply walk away." I appreciated her support, even if her tone still grated against my patience protocols. Trench, ever the professional agent, was already examining our gear and supplies with methodical precision. Little Ahu channeled divine energy to mend our wounds and restore our resolve, his small green form radiating power that seemed to push back against the lingering corruption in our chamber. We descended. The deeper levels of Covetous revealed architecture that predated the dungeon above. Massive stone blocks fitted together with dwarven precision, carved with runes that hurt to look at directly. My optical sensors registered the craftsmanship as masterful, but there was something wrong with the proportions, as if the builders had been working from blueprints designed by minds that didn't quite understand three-dimensional space. "Dwarven work," Trench observed, running his gloved fingers along the ancient stonework. "But older than the settlements above." We came upon a throne room, massive and imposing, with a seat carved from what appeared to be a single piece of black stone. Sky's magical senses indicated powerful enchantments woven into its very structure. Against every protocol in my tactical database, I found myself drawn to sit upon it. The moment my metal frame made contact with the throne, visions flooded my consciousness. Memories that belonged to someone else, yet felt as real as my own experiences. I saw the last dwarven king of this realm, a ruler consumed by an obsession with power that transcended death itself. He had delved too deep, sought knowledge that mortals weren't meant to possess, and in his final moments, he had bound his essence to this place. "The king," I said, my voice echoing strangely in the vast chamber. "He made a pact, trading his kingdom's soul for immortality. But the price..." I paused as more images flashed through my systems. The price was everyone he ruled. The visions showed me more. A creature called Dogu, an entity of pure hunger and corruption that had been the true beneficiary of the dwarven king's bargain. It dwelt in the deepest parts of Covetous, feeding on the life force of any who ventured too far into its domain. And somewhere within its lair lay something we needed, a shard of crystallized power that pulsed with energy I could feel even through the stone floors. We pressed on, driven by purpose, and the terrible certainty that turning back would doom not just us, but everyone who might follow in our footsteps. The final descent brought us to a cavern so vast that my optical sensors couldn't register its far walls. At its center, a mound of writhing flesh and bone that defied description. Dogu, the Amalgamation of Gluttony, a creature that had once been dozens of individual beings but had long since melded into something that existed only to consume. The battle was unlike anything my combat protocols had prepared me for. Dogu's attacks weren't just physical. They were attempts to drain our very essence, to add us to its ever-growing mass. My giant's strength proved crucial as I wielded Styx's warm embrace with devastating force, each blow crackling with the strange new energies the weapon had absorbed during our corruption. Sky's magic proved instrumental, her spells weaving barriers of light that kept Dogu's essence-draining fangs at bay. Trench moved like a shadow, striking at critical joints and vulnerable points with the precision of his royal training. Ahu's divine magic burned away portions of the creature's corrupt flesh, while Connor, despite his wavering faith, channeled holy energy with desperate intensity. But it was during this battle that we learned the true cost of our quest. Dogu's massive form suddenly convulsed, and a tendril of pure corruption lashed out faster than my reflexes could compensate. It struck Trench directly in the chest, and I watched in horror as my companion, our secretive but loyal friend, crumpled to the cavern floor. "Trench!" Sky's scream echoed through the cavern, her usual aloofness shattered by genuine grief. My rage subroutines engaged fully. The giant's power within me erupted in ways I had never experienced, my mechanical frame growing larger, stronger, more primal. Styx's warm embrace became an extension of my fury as I pummeled Dogu with blows that shook the very foundations of the cavern. We destroyed it, not killed. Dogu was beyond such simple concepts, but unmade it, scattered its essence so thoroughly that it could never reform. From the ruins of its corpus, we retrieved what we had come for, a shard of pure energy, crystallized power that hummed with potential I couldn't begin to calculate. But Trench lay still. Connor knelt beside our fallen companion, his hands shaking as he checked for vital signs that weren't there. "He's gone," the paladin whispered, his voice breaking. My faith isn't strong enough. I can't bring him back." That's when I remembered the solarates of sacrifice, boots we had recovered from an earlier shrine, enchanted with the power to trade one life for another. Without hesitation, I began unlacing them from my feet. "Cable, no!" Sky protested, her tiny hands grabbing at my much larger ones. "If you use those, I'll what? Die?" I looked at her with optical sensors that burned with determination. "I'm Warforged, Sky. I was built to endure, to protect. If anyone's going to make this sacrifice, it should be someone who was never truly alive to begin with." But Ahu stepped forward, his small green form radiating quiet resolve. "No," the Verdun cleric said simply. "This is what I'm for. Divine magic flows through me for exactly these moments." Before any of us could stop him, Ahu placed his hands on the solarates and began channeling divine energy into them. I watched as our green companion poured his life force into the enchanted boots, and slowly, miraculously, Trench's chest began to rise and fall once more. The cost was visible immediately. Ahu's green skin had paled, and his movements were weaker. But he lived, and so did Trench. The mysterious agent's eyes fluttered open, confusion and gratitude warring in his expression as he took in our faces surrounding him. "Did we?" he began. "We won," I confirmed, holding up the shard. Its energy cast strange shadows on the cavern walls. "But we need to leave. Now." The return journey to the surface felt like emerging from a fever dream. Each level of Covetous seemed different now, less oppressive, as if Dogu's destruction had broken whatever dark influence had been growing in its depths. But I could feel something else, a presence, watching us, aware of what we carried. When we finally reached the surface, Sky produced a recall scroll from her pack, magic that would transport us instantly back to Vesper. But as she began the incantation, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Counterspell!" A voice rang out from the darkness beyond the dungeon entrance. I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a woman with eyes like winter storms and power that made the air itself recoil. Dierdre. Even without prior knowledge of her, every threat assessment protocol in my system screamed danger. "Sky, now!" I roared, raising Styx's warm embrace defensively. The fairy mage's response was instant and brilliant. "Counterspell!" she shouted back. her magic clashing against Dierdre's in a display of arcane warfare that lit up the night sky. For a moment, the two spells warred against each other, raw magic crackling between them. Then Sky's superior preparation and pure magical talent won out. Dierdre's interference shattered, and our recall scroll activated, pulling us through space in a disorienting rush of magical energy. We materialized in Vesper's town square, gasping and shaken but alive. The shard in my grip pulsed with steady light, and I knew our quest was far from over. Whatever Dierdre wanted, whatever the connection between the corrupted children, Dogu, and these shards of power, we had only uncovered the beginning of a much larger conspiracy. But for now, we were alive. We were together, and we had struck a blow against the darkness that had been growing in the depths of our world. As I looked at my companions, Trench, alive but changed by his brush with death, Sky, her aloofness tempered by the reality of nearly losing a friend, Connor, his faith shaken but not broken, and Ahu, weakened but resolute in his divine purpose, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. My mechanical consciousness, built for logic and tactical analysis, had somehow found room for the one thing that defied all programming: the belief that we could win this war, whatever it ultimately proved to be.